Stand by SOT1.
Standing.
10 seconds. Ready, rollin'. Ready, SOT1.
Ready.
In 4, 3, 2, 1. Roll in.
From legendary Uncle Studios in beautiful Southern California, welcome to another edition of Work Comp Matters, the central location for you employees, you employers, and of course, we haven't forgotten about you damn independent contractors. And now, here's this week's edition of Work Comp Matters. It's August 11th, 12 noon straight up. Welcome to another edition of Work Comp Matters. My name is Steve Appell. Work Comp Matters is brought to you by the workcompcentral.com. If you want the number one location for workers' compensation in California and around the United States, check out the workcompcentral.com. They've got a free 7-day offer. And if you want to pick up their services, I have them. You should too. It's only $1 a day. Work Comp Matters is also brought to you by A1 Law, number one computer management system used by more workers' compensation attorneys than any other computer management system on the damn planet. 818-357-4120 for your no strings attached money back guarantee. Also only $1 a day, A1 Law. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm joined by the madman across the water, John Scalia, as well as my chief of staff, the doctor, but he's not a medical doctor, Mike Zyma. Hot off the press, a California judge on Monday, that's yesterday, granted the state of California's request for a preliminary injunction blocking Uber Technologies and Lyft Incorporated from classifying their drivers as independent contractors rather than employees. And folks, if you've been listening to the show, you know this show is designed for employees, employers, and independent contractors. This story is right up our alley. The judge signaled last week he might be leaning against a request for a preliminary injunction forcing Uber and Lyft to classify drivers as employees rather than independent contractors. The ruling by Judge Ethan Schulman of San Francisco Superior Court is a defeat for the ride-sharing companies as they defend against a May 5th lawsuit by State Attorney General Xavier Becerra and the cities of Los Angeles, San Diego, and San Francisco. Uber and Lyft have been accused of violating Assembly Bill AB 5, a new state law requiring companies to classify workers as employees if they controlled how workers did their jobs or the work was part of their normal business. In a 34-page decision faulting the money-losing companies' prolonged and brazen refusal, and that's a quote, folks, quote, prolonged and brazen refusal, close quote. What does that mean? Beats the heck out of me. To comply with state law. Schulman said the plaintiffs showed an, quote, overwhelming likelihood, close quote. And yes, I know what that means, that they could prove that Uber and Lyft classified drivers illegally. This is a resounding victory for thousands of Uber and Lyft drivers who are working hard and in this pandemic incurring risk every day to provide for their families. Los Angeles City Attorney Mike Fiore said in a statement, Schulman delayed enforcing his order by 10 days to allow appeals, which Lyft said it will pursue. I'm assuming Uber will appeal this as well. California voters are expected this November to consider a ballot measure Proposition 22 to classify app-based drivers as contractors. The state is Uber's and Lyft's largest market in the United States. Drivers do not want to be employees, said Lyft in a statement. Ultimately, we believe this issue will be decided by California voters, and they will side with drivers. Uber did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Several 100,000 gig economy workers, including many at ride-hailing companies and app-based food delivery services, are affected by AB 5, which took effect January 1 and had broad support from organized labor. Schulman said the defendants' argument they were not hiring entities covered by AB 5 flies in the face of Uber's claims in other litigation and their concerted effort to overturn the law this coming November. He also said the public could face substantial harm if drivers were denied employee benefits, such as minimum wage, paid sick leave, family leave, unemployment insurance, and of course, workers' compensation insurance. These harms are not mere abstractions. Did I say that right? Abstractions, yes. They represent real harms to real working people, Schulman wrote. The judge said Uber and Lyft had themselves to blame if their resisting state laws contributed to any far-reaching effects an injunction might have. Defendants may not evade legislative mandates merely because their businesses are so large that they affect the lives of many thousands of people, he wrote. Actually, folks, it's many hundreds of thousands of people that are affected by Uber, Lyft, and of course, the gig economy, which is prevalent in California. Now, I'm not going to give you my opinion or not. I think Uber and Lyft drivers are employees, independent contractors, or hell, maybe even employers. But I do know that we announced last week on the show that California Labor Commissioner Lilia Garcia Brower, who is the California Labor Commissioner, filed a lawsuit. I deem it a class action lawsuit. I'm not sure if it's a class action lawsuit against all of the Uber and Lyft drivers in California, stating that they were acting illegally. I've been attempting for the past week to get the California Labor Commissioner on the show. I'm going to tell you in a couple of minutes about the efforts as well as the success or lack thereof success of getting the California Labor Commissioner Lilia Garcia Brower on the show. But before I do that, I want to go to the doctor. He's my chief of staff. He does the majority of my research. He is not a medical doctor, but folks, trust me, he is an educational doctor. He's been doing his research on the California Labor Commissioner, Lilia Garcia Brower. And I'm going to go to him right now for a minute or two. Dr. Mike, please tell us about Labor Commissioner of California, Lilia Garcia Brower.
Lilia Garcia Brower was born and raised in East LA. She was the executive director of the Maintenance Cooperation Trust Fund, MCTF. For the past 19 years, she has worked diligently with a powerful team to expose rampant and systematic labor exploitation throughout California. She has been instrumental in strengthening enforcement mechanisms for low-wage and immigrant workers in California. Under her leadership, the MCTF has grown to be one of the most effective watchdog organizations. The MCTF investigates cleaning companies for employment law violations and works with government agencies and private bar lawyers to hold unscrupulous employers accountable. The MCTF has facilitated the winning of more than $80 million in back wages and has brought in more than 8,000 jobs from the predatory underground economy into the formal economy. The MCTF has also built productive relationships with district attorneys throughout the state, referring more than 40 illegal operators for criminal prosecution. The MCTF is a nationally recognized for its cutting-edge work in public community enforcement partnership. Lilia spearheaded an effort in 2001 to form a statewide coalition of worker advocates who represent mainly immigrant workers who suffer wage theft. This coalition has evolved and continues today with membership of an estimated 60 organizations throughout California. In 2007, Lilia was appointed to the Fraud Assessment Commission in the California Department of Insurance. She was reappointed by 2 governors and continues on the commission with 12 years of service. I believe her service on that commission ended with her appointment as labor commissioner. The objective of the commission is to augment the fight to end workers' compensation fraud in California. In 2015, Lilia broadened the scope of exploitation the MCTF works to eliminate due to the courage of Georgina Hernandez, a non-union janitor who spoke out publicly about being raped at work. Lilia recognized that the MCTF needed to develop a whole new skill set, so she sought out a partnership with East Los Angeles Women's Center to provide skill-based empowerment training to MCTF investigators and female janitors as to how to defend themselves against harassment, assault, and misogynistic cultures. Most recently, in 2017, Lilia collaborated with former and current janitors, many survivors of sexual violence, to form the Yabasta self-defense group. In 2018, the group trained 160 women. In 2019, the MCTF will establish Yabasta chapters in 5 other cities in the state with the goal of eventually reaching 1,000 women every year. She's got the cred. She's got the resume.
You sounded like you were in the friggin' diamond lane. I have never heard you do a story so fast in 250 editions of Work Comp Matters. I just wanted to tell you that. So,
well, you had told me 60 seconds. So
I think I said take a minute or 2, but whatever. That's okay. We're going to get back to AB 5, the State of California Labor Commissioner Lilia Garcia Brower, my efforts to get her on the show. But we're going to take a news break in a minute. My name is Steve Appell. You're dialed into Work Comp Matters. We are brought to you by the workcompcentral.com. If you want the #1 location for workers' compensation in both California and around the United States, check out the workcompcentral.com. Got a free 7-day offer. And if you want to pick up their services, I have them. You should too, damn it. It's only $1 a day. Work Comp Matters is also brought to you by A1 Law, #1 computer management system used by more workers' compensation attorneys than any other system on the damn planet. 1-833-7420 for your no strings attached money back guarantee. Also $1 a day, A1 Law. I now want to go to the madman across the water, Mr. John Scalia. He's been with me basically from the start. John, take a news story or 2, and then I want to go back to AB 5 and California Commissioner of Labor, Lilia Garcia Brower. John Scalia, take it away.
This is from the San Francisco Chronicle. Coronavirus patient at UCSF gets 2-drug combo in global experiment. Researchers at University of California, San Francisco have begun testing a mixture of 2 of the most promising treatments for COVID-19 in hopes that the concoction will be the, quote, golden ticket, close quote, everyone is looking for to neutralize the coronavirus and relieve world anxiety. Doctors conducting the study, which is sponsored by the National Institutes of Health, treated their first patient last week with a combination of remdesivir, an antiviral drug developed to treat Ebola, and interferon, an anti-inflammatory used for people with multiple sclerosis. Mike, you got one? You want me to read another one?
I sure do.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, Gab the Gov took responsibility Monday for California's coronavirus test data problems and hinted that the abrupt departure late Sunday of a state public health officer was related to the information blunder. Quote, at the end of the day, the buck stops with me. I'm accountable, Newsom said, and I recognize that as governor of the state of California, as it relates to my responsibility, it extends to my team, and it extends to our efforts to keep you safe, to keep you healthy, and to mitigate the spread of the disease, end quote. The Gab refused to say outright that Dr. Angel's exit was due to the data era, quote, but if it's not obvious, I encourage you to consider the fact that we accepted her resignation, he said in a news briefing. We're all accountable in our respective roles for what happens underneath us. I don't want to err any more on that, Newsom said. We're accepting the resignation if we feel it's appropriate, and I accepted that resignation. This is me talking now, just very quickly. I think Dr. Angel must have misled the Gab, and that's what pissed him off.
Well, I know.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yeah, John, let me go first. I know first that when someone resigns, arguably out of the blue, without any reason stated, that generally they are told you should resign because it's going to look better than if you were fired. John, go for it.
Yeah, I read her resume, and she has an impressive resume as a doctor, and I think some research too. But what she was doing had nothing to do with that. I mean, it looks to me like she was totally operating in an area where she had no knowledge or no expertise. She's not a computer person. And what this is all about is a glitch in the computer data, which apparently she was in charge of, but I saw nothing in her resume that indicated she'd ever done anything like that before. So, to some extent, what do you expect when you have somebody and you put them in a position which is basically a technical position and they have no technical expertise?
Mike, do you have an answer to John's question? What do you expect?
Well, I agree. I agree with John, but I think that there is more to it than that. I think that she should have known that the system was, I'll say it colloquially, effed up. She should have known that it was effed up beyond all recognition. FUBAR,
yeah, no,
right?
we like FUBAR. Mike, please continue.
And she should have been honest with the guy. She should have gone in there and said, hey, I'm no technical geek, but this is FUBAR. You got to do something about it. I mean, if you want me to quit now, I'll do it, but you're not going to get any reliable data out of this. That's what.
All right. So
yeah, the question really is whether or not.
Go ahead, John. Go ahead, John.
I mean, you're right to focus on that. But so the question, which we obviously are never going to get an answer to, is was she actually aware that this was going on? If she was, then yeah, even without expertise, there should have been a red light going off somewhere. But that's the question that we're obviously not going to get the answer to, especially if you read what Newsom just said. He's obviously not going to go beyond it, and he's not going to answer the real question.
And John, all good points. As journalistic integrity, who, what, when, where, how, and of course, why. My name is Steve Appell. You're dialed into Work Comp Matters. We are brought to you by the workcompcentral.com. If you want the #1 location for workers' compensation in both California and around the United States, check out the workcompcentral.com. They've got a free 7-day offer. And if you want to pick up their services, it's only $1 a day. Work Comp Matters is also brought to you by A1 Law, #1 computer management system used by more workers' compensation attorneys than any other system in California. 818-357-4120 for your no strings attached money back guarantee. $1 a day. A1 Law. We are talking about AB 5, the judge's injunction, and the California Labor Commissioner, Lilia Garcia Brower, who last week filed a lawsuit on behalf of hundreds of thousands of gig economy workers, primarily with Lyft and Uber. The minute that lawsuit was announced, I contacted the Labor Commissioner's office. I have exchanged multiple telephone calls and multiple emails with a representative of the Labor Commissioner's office. Her name is Paola Liverdi, Paolallaverde. And I want to take a moment and read you the most recent email from Ms. Laverte. And it says as follows, quote, hello, and again, this is after about 7 to 10 emails back and forth. Quote, hello, Steve. Apologies for not getting back to you sooner. Crazy day. So I know you said it is not your policy to provide questions, but we ask that you please do. As you mentioned, that the questions will be based on the press release that should not be hard to do. Well, you know what? You're right. To provide questions in advance and just go ahead and ask them on the show, that is not hard to do. You are absolutely right. I also want to make sure that you're aware that the Labor Commissioner upholds the laws passed by the legislature. She does not create them. She enforces them. Thanks, P. I'm assuming P stands for Paola. Pardon the pun. This took me back. We've got over 250 shows in the tank. I've had attorneys on the show. I've had judges on the show. I've had experts in workers' compensation, employment, and labor law. We started this show about 4.5 years ago, basically as a economically effective way to PR my business. Steve Appell, Workers' Compensation, turchandlaw.com. And I believe that we have been very fair and very objective, not only with our news stories, but with our guests. I've said many times on the show, I don't take cheap shots, okay? I've never been a paid journalist. I've never wanted to be on TV, but I've always wanted to be on radio. And I've taken a great pride in doing this radio podcast. I've assembled a fantastic crew. Scott from Uncle's Studio, Dr. Mike Zyma, the madman across the water. We've also had Ted Durden, the devil's advocate. We've had Mark Reed, the candidate. We've had Robert Ozeron, the protege. Haven't mentioned him in a while. I believe we've been very fair, very objective. We have not taken cheap shots. But the one thing I have never ever done in the past 4 years is forwarded a guest the questions in advance. And by the way, even if I did, I forwarded all the questions in advance and something came up that I wanted to follow up and I wanted to ask a follow-up question. The guest could simply say, well, you didn't send me that question in advance. I'm not going to answer that. Okay? I've never been a paid journalist, but my understanding, CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox, CNBC, they don't forward their guests the questions in advance. And I have never practiced that procedure. And for the Labor Commissioner's representative, Paola Laverty, to insist that I forward the questions in advance to the Labor Commissioner, Lilia Garcia Brower, before she will be on the show, in my mind, is unreasonable. Now, that being said, let me state for the record, there is no question in my mind that no other I've been in workers' compensation employment labor law for 30 years, 3 decades. I have never seen in a 1-year period since Lilia Garcia Brower has been California Labor Commissioner, I have never seen another labor commissioner in 30 years do more for the employees of California than she has done in the past year. Now, whether or not it's right, wrong, questionable, certainly it deserves more discussion. I have no intention of arguing that now. I'm sure I will do that in future shows. But I just want to say, Lilia Garcia Brower, you have an open invitation to come on to Work Comp Matters at your convenience. You will absolutely, without question, get a fair shake. I've got nothing under my sleeve. My 250 podcasts, radio podcasts, they speak for themselves, and you will get a fair shake should you decide to come on the show in the future. Guys, we are running out of time, but I know there must be burning desires, questions. Scott, we're going to go 5 minutes max, but I want to go to Dr. Mike. Go ahead, Mike. Take a minute or two, give your thoughts, be objective, or I will cut your ass off, and then we'll go to John Scalia for his burning desires and comments. Mike.
Well, I will try to be objective. I've been following this situation. You know, I work with Steve, and I've been following this situation. I got to say that Steve has been very, very diplomatic. I have to say he's been a hell of a lot more diplomatic than I would have been in this situation. I am flabbergasted that Lilia Garcia Brower wants questions in advance of before going on to our podcast. I am beyond flabbergasted. And it makes me wonder, why is she paranoid? Why is she running? The Maintenance Cooperation Trust Fund. I've said enough. Thank you.
John?
Yeah, I think it's amazing that a public official is so cowardly. She wants to have the questions written in advance. I mean, you serve the public. You should be willing to answer honest questions. I mean, if you think the atmosphere becomes hostile and unfair, you can walk off. You can terminate the interview. But the idea that you will not appear unless you get softball questions so that you can give your pre-printed answers to make yourself look good is utterly astounding for a public official. I mean, is that what public service has come down to? That we have cowards in public service who want to hide behind transcripts and don't want to answer honest questions to the people they allegedly are serving?
And I gotta say that I never tell Dr. Mike and the madman across the water, John, what to say. I would say maybe 2 or 3 out of 10 times, all of us agree. 7 or 8 times, there is a dissenting opinion, taking a note from the Supreme Court, but we all handle it maturely and professionally. And that is what this show is all about, giving information from both sides. John is a socialist. Mike is a Reagan Democrat. I am a rhino, Republican in name only. We have extended an invite. We will continue to extend an invite for California Labor Commissioner Lilia Garcia Brower to come on the show, but in no way, shape, or form will I compromise my values or, quote, sell out, close quote, and send the questions in advance. I want to thank you all very much for listening to this edition of Work Comp Matters. Scott Walton of Uncle's Studio, legendary Uncle's Studio, Madman Across the Water, John Scalia, Dr. Mike Zyma, my chief of staff, as well as all the good people back at the workcompcentral.com and number one computer management system, A1 Law. My name is Steve Appell. We'll see you again tomorrow at noon for another edition of Work Comp Matters.